Good morning, everyone. We're going to call the Montgomery County Planning Commission monthly board meeting for February 14th to order. Let the record show we currently do not have a quorum. Excused from today's meeting is John Ernst and Obed, and I understand Dan will not be joining us also. We call, so we will press on and withhold from doing any voting until we have a quorum. So, are there any board comments before we get started?
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Okay. And approval of the minutes we'll hold off on. Is there any public comment or staff comment before we get started? Okay, then we'll move on to our first agenda item. So I just got a text that Nicole will be here. So let's move on to the annual summary land development subdivision. Do that first, and then we'll come back and do regional division 0 and the approval of the minutes when Nicole gets here. So that's all right with you, Ann?
I only have 2 presentations.
I'll do that.
I'm assuming the top one is yours.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, I need to figure out. Is there anything I need to know about this? It works like the old clicker?
It works just.
Okay.
What are you? How are you?
All right. How are you?
You're very low key today. Yeah, everybody's very solemn.
No, I'm not.
I'm annoyed.
He's annoyed, and I'm covering my annoyance.
I don't cover.
That's why we work so well
You
together.
want to talk about it, Steve?
He has an appointment at 2:30 to talk about it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll go back to the beginning.
You're working?
No.
Got it.
The on button on the side.
Yeah, I turned it on just a second ago. All right, I'm gonna give you the keyboard and I'm gonna go grab the other old one. This is so easy.
Okay. She's good that our new technology does. All right.
I'll use this and see what's going on with it.
Okay, so I am presenting this morning. First up, the annual summary. This is our annual publication where we document all of the submissions to the office, both land development plans and zoning ordinance and map amendments. So I'm going to run through this efficiently. I have lots to say today. All right, so in 2023, in terms of total new and annual submissions to the office, for our 247 process, we're down, basically, down across the board. And we had the lowest number of submissions for review in the last 10 years. We had 330 overall submissions and 130 new submissions. New proposals submitted to us. By municipality, down across the board as well. The highest number for any one municipality last year was 32 submissions. This past year in 2023, the highest belonging to our beloved Lower Merion Township was only 19. So less for everyone. The second highest number of submissions for any one municipality in 2023 was in Montgomery Township with 17. In terms of acreage proposed for development, again, lower across the board, lowest number in the last 10 years, again, with 794 acres. We note in the report that redevelopment and infill trends are going to slow this total down over time as we eventually develop all of the usable land in Montgomery County and we redevelop more properties, but again, low. Proposed acreage by type, I will note that Industrial development proposals are really the thing that's driving the numbers up. Everything else is down. Residential development made up 1/3 of the submissions we reviewed in 2023. And non-residential uses made up the other 2/3.
And industrial uses of those, like warehouses?
Yes, warehouses. In terms of residential development, not the lowest number of units proposed we've ever seen, but close with 2,006 units total. By type, you'll see that multifamily development continues to be the highest number of units being proposed, with 1,355 units total. Very few single-family detached units being proposed, only 61 total proposed in 2023. In the report, I noted that this low number of units doesn't help with the other topic that we grapple with here a lot, housing affordability. We need places for people to move to. Largest residential proposals, Limerick came in first with the 235 unit townhouse development proposed at Providence Properties, which is pretty close to the outlet mall. We saw several proposals actually take place in that part of Limerick. In terms of age restricted communities, which is something that we talk frequently here about, there was only one age restricted development proposed in this top 10 list, which is the Sisters of St. Basil proposal in Abington Township. That's for 150 age restricted carriage homes. 7 of these top 10 largest proposals were multifamily in nature. Again, Limerick was number 1 with 2 of those largest developments, and other communities that had a large number of units proposed, but still lower than we've seen in the past. Places like Upper Dublin and Marion and Lower Moreland. In terms of non-residential development, that's what we see going up. And in large part, that is due to the warehouse proposals that we've been reviewing here on a pretty regular basis here in the office. Most, you'll see when we look at it by type, that large increasing line is industrial uses. Other uses are down overall, especially office. We saw very little office development proposed in 2023. In fact, you can barely see the line on the chart that represents office development. In terms of largest non-residential proposals, the public or tract proposal in Limerick is the largest by far, with nearly 2 million square feet of industrial warehousing space being proposed. Other large non-residential proposals were some science labs in West Conshohocken, kind of edges a little bit into Upper Marion Township, and some other warehousing proposals in other parts of the county. Penn Medicine proposed a satellite hospital and medical space in Montgomeryville. And you can see here proposed square footage by municipality. Limerick is again at the top due to that public or tract proposal.
Can you go back?
Yes.
So the industrial stuff you said is warehousing, it's not actually manufacturing or anything.
Well, let's see. Public or tract is definitely warehousing. 800 River.
Warehousing for what?
We don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what you do with 2 million square feet.
It's being built on spec, we're just getting it into.
Well, as far as we know, they didn't have to.
Disclose it.
You know, the Upper
It's
Hanover
building
has some
for-
commercial, doesn't it? Upper Hanover, and it might also have residential in it.
The business center one?
Well, but
How much of the industrial?
Neither of these Upper Hanover ones, I don't think has any residential in
it
it.
has commercial though, I'm sure.
I'm not positive.
Oh, you should get down there, it's commercial.
Number 5, yes, maybe a little bit, but the number 6 proposal does not. That was all warehouse.
How much of the industrial is warehouse space?
Of what was proposed,
I don't even know the square footage, but how many of these projects, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, of this top 8? Which ones are warehouse space?
I can tell you 800 River Road is warehouse, but Discovery Labs is more
Is R&D space,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or what?
R&D manufacturing for life sciences.
We saw that.
Right.
Right. But yes, 800 River Road is warehousing. The two Upper Hanover proposals are primarily warehousing. 205 Schoolhouse Road in Franconia, I believe, was a warehouse. I don't remember what 203 Church Road in Upper Gwinnett is. I already mentioned the Penn Medicine space. It's like it's not quite a hospital. There's no overnight stays there, but it's, doctor's offices and outpatient services and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's not, so if we look at 1 and 2, I guess their closest main arteries to get to are 202, is that correct? What's in
No,
Chester
420.
County?
422.
422, sorry, 420.
But that public, I gotta be honest, the public or tract site is kind of isolated. It is not necessarily that easy to get to 422 from there.
It's a little bit of a question mark, Steve. I mean, I was surprised to see that there would be proposed from public attractors. To get up to 422, you gotta go through Newport Village, and there's not a lot of room there. So
Right.
my guess is that that's spec, and it's the real outlier. Everything else just about is near a
Do
highway.
you think that indicates that it's spec, or do you think that indicates that it's that it's a known purpose? And somebody signed off on putting it down there.
Did it tickle?
I don't, when I look at it, I think huge piece of land. With enough public money, it's a good redevelopment opportunity. I can build this thing up and maybe serve Chester County, but it's not near the highway, so it's puzzling.
And then number 2 is close to 422.
Yeah.
Number 3, you said is R&D, so it's not necessarily. Number 4. It's between a whole bunch of stuff.
But has easy access to the highway.
Number 5 and 6 seem to have easy access to what is that?
Quakertown interchange.
309 and 476.
663 to 476.
So that's 5 and 6, 7 and 8. 7 is what? That's 276.
No, it's 476.
You can get on the Colpsville interchange, the northeast extension there.
And 8 is. So what's 8?
Good question. Was that a Merck expansion? I just don't remember.
Okay. That's fine. That makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Zoning activity. Real quick. We had, again, fewer proposals meant fewer zoning amendments to review as well. We had a 94 total amendments submitted to us, again, down from 2022 and below the 10-year average of 131 submissions. We had 81 ordinance amendments and 13 zoning map proposals that we reviewed in 2023. In conclusion, happy Valentine's Day.
So
Yeah.
before you do that, in
Yeah.
zoning, are there any commonalities in these zoning amendments that you're saying? Like are they tracking for similar issues that they're amending for? Or are they mostly
I did not.
township initiated zoning amendments, or are they developer initiated zoning amendments?
I did not look at any of that, to be honest. I can certainly include that information in the future. I was just looking at totals.
I feel they're more municipal driven, one we saw this year. We tend to, I think, the fees come in, so that kind of reduces it, but that's kind of, by the time it gets, and sometimes it starts with the developer and the municipality is on board usually, and then it comes to the municipality, but that's my.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know if they're.
Municipality versus a developer?
Right.
Okay. It'd be interesting to know, Steve, I agree with you. Be interesting to know if there was any trends in what municipalities are asking for. Because that may inform our community planners for other municipalities to bring that up.
Right.
So I think that'd be a good information to have at some point in the future.
And if they're substantive, or are they just like house cleaning zoning amendments?
I bet we could say all of the above for sure. I can think
Oh,
of
sure.
examples of each
So
one.
that's good.
What's
Yeah.
that? Well,
In our, some of
you're
those are
saying,
written by
you're
us,
saying
so
both,
as
right?
community
It's
planners.
both, it's both, you know,
Yeah.
some of it is a little bit of everything all wrapped into one amendment. Some of it is rezoning properties to allow for new development.
So those are,
Signs.
those are the least interesting ones to me. It's more so the ones that are,
Right.
you know, more substantive.
Creating overlays.
zoning,
Right.
exactly. Or something to handle a situation that they, well, whatever. It'd be interesting to see what they are.
I'll give you one example, it's just of much note recently. Upper Pottsgrove had a whole slew of house cleaning things, but within that was one particular section that raised the press and the public's interest, was putting municipal uses across all districts. And there's actually an article that pointed to MCPC as recommending this and framing it as we were saying you could build anywhere in the township. We did support that, and it does, most municipalities do allow municipal uses throughout all of the
Did you
districts,
like
that's
them?
not unusual. They didn't have anything that's allowed or didn't allow that, so they're just doing it, which again, municipalities they can bypass their own code if they really want to.
Response to something.
Right, so just by you allowing it, and I actually wrote a letter back to the Board of Supervisors, just clarifying that, yes, it is permitted in any district, but that does not mean any site is the right site for it. Because I knew where it was going. But that was one.
Is there a definition of municipal uses? In other words, like, where they put a water tower in the middle of what?
They ran again, and it included everything from municipal open space, preserve or a biological thing, I get. And it was a, police station, so not all municipal uses are the same.
What does the trend of things tailing off do for your staffing?
It certainly, I guess it opens up a little bit of time within, certainly. It more has a bigger impact on the, there's revenue associated with, that, so. These numbers don't scare me, and I think with our staff time, we have a little extra time to put towards other efforts, that's a good thing. Yeah.
So they're not running, they won't be running on the treadmill chasing the carrot this year. They'll have more time to spend quality time on doing particular projects.
Yeah, I mean, every review is different, so it can be, one review can take a lot longer than another review, so. It's a little misleading just to look at just the numbers, but certainly. The downward, and it's, we touched on it, but the economy and the financing and kind of catching up to pipeline items.
Well, I think this whole, and you haven't concluded, you're on your concluding, but what I was gonna comment is we're seeing these trends. And how long they're going to continue, we don't know. We can surmise, we can make educated decisions, but it's clear that a lot of this stuff is a real change, a deep rooted change in how we develop change as communities.
I don't know what do you mean by that?
I mean that we went through these boom years where we had such development out in our further, western suburbs in the middle of our community. Now, after and it's not necessarily that it's because Montgomery County was promoting, where you place it, how you arrange it, what it looks like, into areas where there's infrastructure and already density. But now we're seeing that. I mean, we're seeing all this multifamily housing going into every built community. I'm living in the western suburbs. I never thought I would be seeing, within 15 years, the number of units being built. Now you have to understand, of course, it's not as many as Conshohocken, but for the density that you have in the more rural communities, it's a real change for those communities. And we're seeing that just with what are all these institutional, warehouses going to do? What that's a big change. And so what I'm saying is, we just, as we're going into our comprehensive plan, these are some of the issues. Is this what it's going to be? We don't know what it's going to be moving forward.
Yeah, it still comes down to the, those growth areas. We know,
Exactly.
we've seen them, we've seen places change, we've seen, and that's where, we're trying to make them change, in an amicable way and in a way that makes sense. And, yeah, there's more apartments going into the places where they weren't as clear before, but that's also because if they don't, where are people gonna live if they
Exactly.
can't afford a single family
Exactly.
home, which is so hard.
But
to
I'm
do.
just saying that, these issues of, equity and affordability and dealing with sustainability, they're major changes, and they come on you slowly, but they're very impactful.
Dan, do you have a
Theme for
sense
the
of,
conference.
sorry, talk to him. Do you have a sense of how the applications spread out over the months of last year? Did you see a reverse bell curve where they were slow in the beginning or in the middle and then picked up? Or
My recollection is that we got a slow start to 2023, but in general, it was just slower overall, but I don't have a good
I guess I'm
sense.
asking because there tends to be, there was more activity towards the last quarter of the year because of the interest rates starting to drop off. And I wanted to know if there was,
Expectation.
we're seeing it, I'm seeing it in my business, projects that were slow or now or were where we were spending time on a much drawn out period of time are now having pressure put on them. So we started seeing that towards the fourth quarter of last year. So I was curious to see if that trend is similar to what you saw in applications, where you started to see an uptick compared to
Well,
the rest of the year.
So I was going to end my presentation with a question to all of you. Steve Zabinski, who's somewhere listening, and I have been discussing the possibility of turning the information that we distribute to you on a periodic basis on the new submissions that we're getting and the major proposals and whatnot, which ultimately becomes this report, turning it into a more formal publication, but we wanted to throw it out to you. You don't have to answer now, but if you have any thoughts on this, how that information might be most useful to you over the year. He sends out a periodic email that you're included on. It says, these are the developments of note that we received over the last couple of weeks. How might that data be best utilized by all of you? Would you like to see it as an online tally somewhere so that you can see things like the municipality or the number of units and something that you could easily sort through? Or would you like it to be more of a narrative document, which is kind of what you're getting now?
We could do a 5-minute report every meeting, just at the front, just like, this is what happened last month. And that's actually ties into something we talked about, other planning, I was looking at other planning commission agendas for another item, and that is very.
So I think on a monthly and or a quarterly basis, open to either one, it would be good to see like a 2-year look back on similar applications.
Would it be beneficial to the municipalities in Montgomery County to get this type of information?
So that's what I was thinking, but who else besides us?
Chamber of
Should
Commerce.
be the audience for this and for what purpose?
Well, we also published a quarterly construction report, as opposed to looking at the things that have been submitted but haven't been approved. We do publish a quarterly look at things that are being built, but only large multifamily proposals and large non-residential proposals.
I find that the snapshot information is most useful if you're comparing it to something. So it's no different than running a business. Each quarter you look at your, P&L or your balance sheet and you compare it to the year before, or maybe 2 years before, because that's how you understand where you're headed and what's going on with your business. It's the same thing in this situation. I would like to see how these numbers compare. Now, obviously, we know that they're down, but are they following a similar trend in something else in the economy? For instance, like I just talked about, is there a contributing factor, and does that factor in this case interest rates? Is it something else? You know, could it be, like this year, could it be the contributing factor? Could it be the election? You know, would we see reduction in applications as we got closer and closer to the election because of uncertainty? I mean, you know, it's all those different things, and it's interesting to see how those trends play out. The only way to really understand that is to look back, and I think so. Finding a period of time to examine that, whether it's, I think per quarter is fine. I don't think it is on a monthly basis, but I think something like that would be interesting for us. I think it'd be interesting for the county to understand, and I think it'd be interesting for some of the municipalities to understand too.
But that ties in really what I'm saying. Seeing that would help us kind of figure out or discuss what we could anticipate moving forward if we know that. Because I think there are some decision making that we make as a commission on how we address that. It's like, is this time to really proactively look at ordinances? Because these are the changes we see. You may have to address these issues in the next 3 to 5 years. Let's get ahead of them.
Would we send it to all the municipalities, or would we just send it to the ones that we have contracts? If we send it
No, we
to
send it all.
all, yeah, I was gonna say, if we send it to all, it's almost like it, hey, this is what you're missing out on, this type of information.
But how do we can send it, but how do we get their attention? I mean, there's, you send it, well, that's always your issue.
Yeah, and there's 62 of them, so that means
Some
different
will
issues,
take
different places, and means different things to different people. So they know and they know we have the information now. I don't think we're in a bubble. So
You want eyeballs
whether
on
we
it though.
want to do more frequent, it's all on the website. There are monthly reports, there's summaries and totals right now. It's just the analysis I think that you're suggesting.
Do you want to do any more on this conclusion, or do you just want to continue on with this conversation, or?
Nope, I don't need to reiterate what I already said.
Yeah.
Everything was down, warehouses are up. That's the summary.
And just one question, do we have any idea how much land is land banked? What builders have in their portfolio and they're waiting, is all that land just out there?
I don't think the builders will share where they have.
Yeah, no, but you understand what I'm saying?
No, just-
It's like, how do we, is there
It's a
any?
big background call.
Used to.
Big one.
Well, but those are the unknowns. I mean, where do people have it? Are they holding it for some change, as Stephen
I
said?
would love that information.
I know, everybody wants that.
But not for-
I'm not sure I have that information.
Right, well, but I wanted for
Exactly why nobody would give that. Okay, Jonathan.
What I hear you saying is, what we're getting now is like the numbers,
Right.
and you want analysis on that,
Yes.
on those numbers.
Yeah, look, I don't want deep
You want
analysis.
some
I want-
deeper dive into, why is this happening? What do you think? Like,
Yeah,
use your
it'd be-
brain on this, rather than we did 10 here and 15 there, and now it's 5,
Yes.
and, this is the trend.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, I mean, the information you gave is great. It's certainly comparing it year to year.
Right.
And I get that. I'm curious because within a year, and 2023 is a good example. Within a year, you can certainly see a substantive change in something in the economy that would change what we're seeing on the ground as far as subdivisions, land development applications, those type of things in development, and how those projects materialize over a period of time, because obviously anything that you're seeing
There's a drive.
at the end, I think there's an offset to the effect of, let me be more specific. So if interest rates rose in January of 2024 to 7% or higher than they are now, and I think you see that there's a lag in how that affects how it affects these numbers. And is that lag 3 months? So if this is your curve for interest rates or whatever, if your curve is like this, I think your curve, or I think the same line or a similar line, it'd be interesting to know if that line is offset, and what is it offset by? Is it offset by 3 months? Is it offset by 6 months? Is the recovery quicker? Does the line meet that interest rate line sooner? Does the line, if the election is the thing? Because we've seen that happen. We've seen on national election years, especially presidential election years, there's definitely a change in how people's thoughts are and uncertainty as to what they might see in tax policy or, whatever it may be. You start to see a drop down. So does that drop down, if the election's here, does that drop down slowly come, and how quickly does it pick up? I'm just looking for trends. I don't necessarily think we need to get into complete.
It wouldn't be hard to show you submissions over the calendar year and,
Yeah.
break it down by month. That's not hard. I do think it means that you want me to make more presentations to the board, and I am totally behind that.
Well, I am all for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking to changing the name of these meetings.
I asked for an agenda to be submitted to all of you with my name next to every item.
But we want this information so we can be more proactive in our services and the way we guide.
I'm all in favor of you doing whatever Matt Edmond has to do. That's me.
I actually was going to ask you if you wanted to go back to his agenda item instead of me continuing on to the grant program.
Give her a break.
I do. Is there anything else on this topic?
Is there anything else on the agenda? I mean.
No, this is it. Oh, this one?
Well, we will be spending those.
And fixing on it.
And she's still got one more thing to discuss with us. Thanks, Ann. Appreciate it.
No problem. I'll be back in 5 minutes.
Matt, you wanna? How you doing, Matt?
Good, you're here. It's good to see you. You too, my friend.
Is it awake?
All right. Thank you guys for moving me around till we had a quorum. I appreciate that, because this is an action today. This is good news. This is money to the planning commission. And we're gonna be taking this to the commissioners hopefully in next week. What day is it? The 14th? Yeah, next week. So let me just tell you a little bit about what this is and what the resolution is before you. DVRPC last year was awarded a Safe Streets and Roads for All grant. Safe Streets and Roads for All is a safety-focused, discretionary, competitive grant program under the IIJA. So remember, we've talked about the IIJA before, also known as the BIL. It's got a couple of hundred different discretionary grant programs, running the gamut from broadband to roads to trails to anything. So Safe Streets and Roads for All is part of that. And there's, I think, like $1.5 billion or $1 billion in this program. So they open it up to planning grants and implementation grants. The feds do this all the time. They'll say, we have this program, but for the first year or two, you can only apply for planning grants because we want you to do planning first. And then once you've done a plan or you've done your study, come back and we'll open it up for implementation grants. So DVRPC got a planning grant under the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. And it totals 1.47 million. And so what DVRPC is going to do is they are going to do a regional Vision Zero plan or a regional safety action plan, which is basically going to be a document that analyzes where the worst and highest number of crashes are, which could be a car hitting a pedestrian, a car hitting a bicyclist, 2 cars hitting each other, like the whole gamut. They're going to map it out. They're going to figure out where the worst things are, and they are going to convene a group of stakeholders to help them come up at the end of the day with a plan that has a map that shows where these areas are. And it's going to be for the entire region so that when it's all said and done, any one of our municipalities can use this plan to then apply for an implementation grant from the same Safe Streets and Roads for All program. So as part of that $1.47 million grant, they're going to pass through $71,111 to each of the 9 counties, including ours. So what we're going to do with that money is the transportation section, the community planning section, and maybe the design section as well, will be involved in working with our municipalities, being the go-between between DVRPC and their team, the consultant, and the municipalities themselves, because we need to get information back from the municipalities. What studies do they have out there? What data do they have about crashes? We need to be at the table, helping to decide what dots on the map get into the final document. And then we need to be promoting this document back to our municipalities. So we're kind of middlemen here, and that's what the $71,111 grant is for. I'll add there is a $35,556 in-kind match, which again, it just means that our planning commission staff in a couple of sections, when we do things, we write down our hours and our MIS code, keep track of it, tell DVRPC that we have met the $35,556 worth of our time, and we get $71,111 back. So it's really a no-brainer. I don't want to call it free money, but it's money for us to do the things that we do, which is the best kind of grant. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Well, before we get questions, let me put the motion into the record. So before us, we have MCPC Resolution 24-2.1, Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission, Region Vision 2050 Action Program Grant Funds. Wow, that's a long name. Resolution of February 14th, Valentine's Day, by the way, in case anybody didn't know that, 2024. Which has Regional Vision 2050 Action Plan, and as let's talk about the $106,667, which is split, looks like 2/3 to DVRPC and 1/3 to us in kind. So, and I so move. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second. Any comments or questions for Matt? So I assume at some, I'm sorry. So I'm assuming at some point we'll have a further conversation about where this is headed.
Yes, and we're still having further conversations with DVRPC about where this is headed. We had a meeting, what, Matt, 2-3 weeks ago, and what I described is pretty much what DVRPC said. We need you to, first action item is go to your municipalities, find out, catalog their plans, right? So I don't think that this is going to be a heavy lift or really intense work, but we do want to keep you guys informed as this thing develops, and we're a little bit in for the ride as well.
Safe Streets, will this blend in with our study to, maybe help that?
Which study are you referring to?
I'm just saying, we're always looking on how to make our roadways safer for both pedestrians and bicyclists and everything.
Yes.
So do we already have some policy that will help guide what we're going to do with this grant fund?
Yeah, so you're referring to the Complete Streets policy?
Complete,
Yes,
sorry.
yes. So they are not the same thing, but they are related. And basically the Complete Streets policy more or less directs our staff here to basically be doing this work. So,
Okay, so that's what I want.
yeah, it all ties
All the
together.
lines, and it funds some of the stuff that we were going to be doing anyway, hopefully.
Yeah.
Or advances.
And let me just add too, that, I mean, it's a little bit out of the planning commission's realm. It's a roads and bridges thing, but the beauty of this and our involvement is, remember, the county owns 75 miles of roads. And many of them, I should say, are principal arterials, where if you look at the crash numbers, crashes happen on highways and on principal arterials and on places where there's a lot of drivers on highways and principal arterials. And so because the county owns roads like that, I expect some of these things will show up. And this, in theory, should open up the county to being able to get safe streets and roads for all grants to help us make safety improvements, which through the Complete Streets policy, we keep pushing that department to do.
Good, okay.
And that's what's really necessary. This step has to be taken, put into place in order to go after
That
that
money.
money to do
Absolutely.
the projects. So it's a step-by-step process. It not only gives you kind of that priority list, but that's the mechanism to get you to the
Sure.
point to win the grants, to do the project.
You have to have the policy.
Right.
Safety is, rises to the top of the conversation.
Concrete lineal sequence.
Sorry, guys.
Safety has certainly risen in recent years in DVRPC's conversation, how they look at projects, how the tip gets formulated, and the funding available, what grants are orchestrated towards. So by being more prepared for it, that in the end, it may just mean that, the jostling of projects as far as what comes out, what wins the money. That's where the tickets are being written right now and will be in the future. So preparing for that is important.
So, go ahead, John.
Vision zero means like zero accidents, is that?
Zero deaths, zero fatalities.
Zero fatalities, okay. So $1.47 million grant that DVRPC got, they're giving this amount of money to 9 counties. But the rest of the money is for implementation, or the rest of the money is for DVRPC to collate it? Where was?
Yeah,
happened with the rest of
so my recollection is that DVRPC is taking maybe $200,000 off the top for their administration, you know, because they have to pay their people to do stuff, maybe hire some new staff. About 600,000, or 700,000, I think, is going to go to a consultant to help them prepare the plan. And then the rest is parceled out among the 9 counties. And it's all the same number. Every county gets that 71,100.
The plan is a conglomeration of what.
An
the
amalgam
counties-
of what we all do.
Well, it's gonna be in some ways an amalgamation of whatever safety studies are out there. They're gonna be looking at PennDOT data on crashes. They're gonna be looking at, say North Wales Borough has a comp plan. In the comp plan, they map out where crashes are, and they map out talk about what their policies are. They want to get that type of information from every municipality, as many as they can. And they want to kind of distill it. How it's going to look in the plan, I don't really know. I'm not sure they know yet, but they want to make sure that what's out there in terms of what's been studied, what's been a policy, where the area, you know, if a comp plan says, hey, this intersection's a problem, they want to know that, so that can help them maybe come up with a rubric for ranking where all these top intersections are and which ones are more important.
So our work gets put together and then it goes to them and then there's the report. It's not that there's gonna be a report and then we work from that report.
Yeah, well, let me just be clear. I mean, they're not compiling this stuff and then just issuing a report. It's a planning process. We're gonna be at the table through the course of about 18 months as this planning process unfolds. But how exactly it's gonna look other than the standard, hey, we collect data, we meet, we get reports back from the consultant, they show us a draft, we give, like, that's typical planning process. We know that's gonna happen, but where the gaps are in that planning process, I don't even think DVRPC really knows.
Right, the fact that they don't know what they're gonna get at this point, and there are certain boxes that they have to tick within the federal guidelines for this to qualify in the end to get to that next step. But, you know, in a process like this, they are relying on the municipalities for that first step, and depending on what they get back from that first step will guide DVRPC, you know, through the rest of the process where they need to fill in holes and gaps. But, you know, having it be a collaborative effort between DVRPC and the 9 counties, but, you know, that's going to produce the best end result that is most valuable and, you know, speaks to what the community needs are from a safety perspective. So.
What's the best guess in terms of implementation money become available? In what year?
What year? Well, the implementation grants are available now. But obviously we don't have a plan as a region. Our communities don't have a plan because they haven't done their own. So my guess is probably it's 2024 now, probably in 2026 when this plan is done. And depending on the timing of that round opening, that's probably when you'll start to see the first applications.
So I have one question. Will the analysis of whatever data they're looking at take into account for the reasons for some of the crash or accidents or deaths?
Yeah.
And what I'm really asking is, and I will not, there's no PC way of saying it, will they be separating out the pure stupidity of drivers and what is actually a caused by a layout or something in the infrastructure that is causing these accidents? Because I mean, I had this argument way back when Abington wanted to did put in red light cameras for situations where you had a better chance of getting hit by lightning bolt than you did getting into an accident in these situations. And then how many of those are just pure stupidity? You're never going to change that.
Yeah.
So
I wish, Steve, I knew the answer to that. I'll be honest with you, I don't. If I had to take a guess, just because it's a high level plan, I would anticipate that there would probably be less of that conversation than we would like, Matt and I would like. We are big advocates of parsing this stuff and not treating crashes and problematic intersections as just, one generic thing. We take that approach with a lot of things in planning. It's not just a big abstract, like you got to drill down in the details. So I anticipate that we'll be taking that approach in the meetings. Whether or not we'll get the traction that anyone says, yeah, if we come up with 200 prime spots that we want to make this into this map, that, these are the the top 200. Whether or not anyone will listen to us when we say, well, let's take a look at this in depth. I don't know. I don't even know, Steve, if they're gonna have details for what should happen in each of these 200 intersections.
Well, that's
It's a big
the
question.
problem is it would require somebody to actually look at police reports and understand
That's
the
what I was gonna
circumstances of the accidents. And that's, you know, one of the things that we discussed way back when in Abington for the red light cameras was the same thing. It's like, you know, show us the information. I asked for it, never really came to me, but anyhow. That's the curiosity that I have, and this is early on, so we're not gonna know that, but
And-
it's
and
good to know if they're gonna parse it down to that level, because you're never gonna stop the stupid driver.
And all I can do is just make sure that you guys are aware that Matt and I, and community planning as well, like we do that all the time.
I know.
We are in these subcommittee meetings, which this is just another new subcommittee. We're in these meetings all the time and we're always pushing DVRPC to say, you know, don't make generic assumptions, look at things deeper, be much more intense about, you know, the types of things you analyze, the types of things that you recommend. Don't do blanket stuff. So we're gonna take that approach in, and thankfully, instead of just going to these meetings like we normally would, we get $71,000 to do it.
I appreciate that. Okay, so
We're sorry, Steve, Bob's got his hand up.
Bob's always got to talk.
I'll talk to you later. I mean, do you have the time or you got the money to have interviews with like the police chief where it all filters to the top on accidents? Would that be something that you would try to engage in?
We could, but again, I until I start to see like a Gantt chart that shows their timeline, you know, what tasks they're gonna do, when it's right now, it's still very nebulous. I don't know how exactly they as a project team are going to work with municipalities. If we interview the chiefs, then it would probably be on us to just do that. But I want to make sure that, like, if we get to a point where they need a piece of information or we want to push them on something and that's the next logical step for us, we'll do that. But at this point, I don't know if that's what's needed yet. But it's a good thought.
Can you keep in mind, like, as this process goes forward, a good time to come back to us when some of those conversations have started.
Yeah.
Among this working group through
Yeah.
DVRPC.
Yeah, why don't we maybe just bookmark early, maybe come back mid-summer, mid-late summer, like 6 months out. Again, they've given us no timeline other than generically like, oh, we want to be done by this month.
Yeah,
So-
so I figure internally you guys can figure out when that is, so.
We'll come back.
Okay. Are there any other questions from board members? Any questions from staff or the public? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Great, thanks, Matt. All right, Ann,
Ready?
back to you.
Yeah.
Montco 2040 implementation grant program update.
Okay, we have talked about the grant program changes a bunch lately, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about that. It really is just gonna mostly be an update on the projects that are in the hopper and things that have completed over the last year. So, all right. Okay, so our 2024 launch is underway. The applications to the grant program are due on March 1st, and I am busy talking to lots of municipalities and others on their project ideas. I've talked to people about solar panels, sidewalk construction, trails, trail amenities, pickleball. Just preparing you for pickleball.
Still strong with pickleball.
Bike sharing, all sorts of different project ideas. The project guidelines are mostly the same. We did increase the budget for an individual project to $250,000 and $350,000 for multi-municipal projects. I've not talked to anybody yet on a multi-municipal project idea, but that doesn't mean that I won't be surprised on March 1st. We increased the duration for projects up to 3 years from 2. And we decreased the match for municipalities with median household incomes that are lower than 80% of the counties, which as of the last estimate was just under $80,000. So any municipality with a median household income less than 80,000 or so gets a 10% match instead of a 20% match. Otherwise, the details are pretty much the same. Since the program started in 2016, we have received 205 applications and awarded 127 grants for a total of 15.3 million. We always get more requests than we can make awards, and the average grant award is about $120,000. We've got most of the county covered in blue because that indicates a municipality that has received a project in some way. Still a couple of holdouts. I'm hopeful that one day we'll get applications from the municipalities that haven't received funds from us before, but
Those
We'll
six
see.
municipalities, have we had applications from them? I think we have some of
a
them.
couple. We got a submission from Franconia for a project.
I remember one from Salford, right? Is there?
No, nothing I can remember. In any case, you know, I think we have done a pretty good job of distributing these funds to communities that have good project ideas. The focus
Sorry,
can
can I ask you one question? Can you go back to that?
yes.
In those 6 communities that have not received, do we have community assistance contracts? I think with Upper Fredericks and New Hanover, don't we have them as part of the
Exactly.
I
regional?
think there's 9, not 6. It was
There are
53
nine.
of 62.
Yes, there are 9.
What am I missing?
Rockledge, there's some
Rockledge.
small municipalities.
Oh,
that I
Great
forgot.
asset.
Or Wales. I
It's a
see.
quiz, kind of a quiz. Anyway, do we have planning assistance contracts? No, not in all of them, in some of them. We certainly work with New Hanover, and we've worked in the past with.
Tony and Salford are in Indian Valley Regional.
Right,
Salford's has.
Aren't Upper Frederick, New Hanover, one of the regionals also?
No,
Yeah.
New Hanover's in the Pottstown region. In any case, in some ways we work with these places and in some ways we don't, but I'm always available to meet with municipalities who might be interested but don't know where to start.
I was just trying to see if there was a direct correlation.
In terms of the focus categories, they have remained unchanged for quite some time, including the special focus categories. By far, the bulk of the grant monies have been under the walk and bike Montco category. That's a pretty broad category itself, so all walkability improvements, bike facilities, it all gets lumped into walk and bike Montco.
Where does pickleball fall in? with that?
Other,
We might need to make a category just for pickleball.
it's all of other.
Yeah, 1.4 of the 1.5.
I would probably call that other. So, a quick status update on the projects that we have awarded as they have completed. You would think, 2019 grants, why are we talking about those? They're not all entirely done yet. But we had a couple of them wrap up in this past year. Royersford, you're gonna see a lot of Royersford in this presentation. They've done a really good job of,
Are there any open projects in 2018 grants? So
We're done with
2019 is the
20
furthest we go back with unfinished projects.
that is correct.
Got it, thank you.
There are still a couple of unfinished projects from 2018, including,
Oh, there are
19.
29.
sorry, 19.
Okay.
We're done with 18, sorry. Horsham's got some street lighting that they're installing in the Pennsylvania Business Park. That has been long delayed, but I have been assured by the township that it is underway, that it is imminent, that they're gonna finish up this spring. And Cheltenham has an outstanding project as well for some green stormwater improvements. Those funds expire soon as well.
Is that underway?
I don't know.
I believe it is. Is it
They had a scope change. They reduced the number of sites they were gonna work on from 4 to 3, but I have not gotten an update.
Extensions? They have, right?
Many extensions. Any of these projects from 2019 have been,
They would have only had 2 years.
they would have expired, the funds would have expired normally in
I
2021.
don't know, in my mind, I'm still in 2021. 2024 is so far out for me.
All of these projects have received several extensions, so. Anyway, let's talk about the ones that have actually finished rather than the ones that haven't finished. So first up is Royersford. They have completed their portion of the Riverfront Trail. It leads up to the Trestle Bridge, which I'll get to in a couple of minutes, but This looks really nice. They've got some really nice interpretive signage along the trail. Some nice historic streetlights constructed in Spring City across the way. They have an interesting boundary there that Scott and I toured many moons ago. And it looks really nice. A nice amenity to the downtown. We'll get to the bridge in a couple of minutes. Upper Moreland completed their gateway signage project. They received $72,000 from us to put in gateway signage that, I'll be honest, I had to drive around and really like hunt down. It was hard to find the signs. I was looking in the wrong place. There's one right as you get off the highway, as you enter into Willow Grove, that I've driven past, I think, 10 times at this point, but didn't notice it until the other day. But I did find the sign. They look like this. They look good. They say welcome to Willow Grove on all of the signs that are spotted, and they make for a nice gateway. And Upper Dublin is in the middle of this big transformation of Twining Park. We gave them $200,000 toward putting in trails throughout this former golf course. I went out to look at this on what must have been the hottest day of last year, so I didn't get very far. But I promised to go back once the next phase of their project is done. They're putting in a bike park, like a bike playground of sorts that we provided funding to, and that's gonna be wrapping up soon, so.
Is that like a C box bridge?
So this was kind of cool. They used, trailers to create bridges from, they cut off the ends of the trailer, and they had used that for these bridges that are here in the park. It's interesting, these paths have variations in terrain. They're being used actively by mountain biking clubs and stuff like that.
And my son does a cyclocross race there every year.
Yeah. It's different. It is a different kind of park than what I am used to checking out with this program. So I'm truly interested to go back and see how things look.
I imagine those trails are pretty hot in the summer.
It was hot, I'll be honest.
They don't take off the tops.
Oh, of the trailer? No, the trailer is closed on the top. Anyway, it's a nice addition to Upper Dublin. All right, moving on to 2020, we have projects that have not wrapped up yet. Got the Perk Yeoman Creek signage program that is almost done. We had a project from this round withdrawn, a green parking lot rehab from Satterton. They are not pursuing the project. It was too expensive to pursue. And a handful of projects that are still underway. Back to Royersford. So Royersford had a grand ribbon cutting just at the beginning of the year on their trestle bridge, which the Riverfront Trail connects to. This was a former railroad bridge that has been rehabbed into a nice connection from Royersford to Spring City. This is right by Dulcie's favorite outdoor outfitters store.
Yeah.
You keep telling us about. This was really nice. I didn't know what to expect here, but the bridge looks great. That's Scott. He was there too. And they've got they had a lot of people come out. This took a lot of money and partnership on the borough's behalf, and it was a big project for them. Towmenson Township wrapped up its Kriebel Road Trail. This project received $190,000 from us, but that was not enough to do the entire scope as they originally intended. They did have to apply for a scope change. They broke it down into 2 different phases. So they just did the small portion over here. But this is a nice looking trail. It is along Kriebel Road and connects to Fisher's Park over here, and also hard to tell, but I lost my dot. There's another little park over here as well, so it's a nice connection for this neighborhood. Upper Marion is proceeding with its First Avenue Road Diet and wrapped up the 2nd phase of this work, which is mostly sidewalk construction and road diet work. They also have lots of other placemaking work going on adjacent to the road diet. So this is my son taking advantage of the ping pong table that they have alongside the sidewalk area. So This was the recipient of $190,000 for this ongoing road diet work. They combined the third phase of this project with some additional funds from us to instead divert from the sidewalk work and work on finishing the solar powered light installations. Well, I should say lamp post installations that are taking place along this pathway. North Wales finished its Center Street Gateway and Sidewalk Improvements Project. This received just under $155,000 from us. It is a couple of things all rolled into one project. They have this crosswalk here with push button lights and the sidewalk that was built to connect the neighborhood adjacent to the park, which technically is next door in Upper Gwynedd. And they put in the signage here and this gateway post to mark that you're leaving North Wales and going into Upper Gwynedd and vice versa. 2021, we're moving right along. Lots of 2021 projects that wrapped up in the last year. I visit all of them happily. So first up is East Norriton Township with their Stanbridge Park improvements. You might recall that we approved a scope change for this. Originally, they wanted to construct pathways through their park and install a new gazebo and put in solar powered panels above a small area of their parking lot, and scrapped that in favor of constructing a new community building in the park, which is here at the bottom, because they felt that that was a more imminent need. So we approved the scope change. I think their intention is to go for all of that other stuff in a future phase. And this building really houses a lot of different uses. It's marked for pickleball, I think, but also basketball and other activities. There's a movie screen in there, and it serves a lot of different purposes. Hackborough wrapped up its Station Trail lighting project. This is a project that basically provides lighting along this pathway that links the housing development that's down here. That's here, which has easy access onto this trail that leads up to the train station. But at nighttime, it was dark and uninviting. But now the lights that look like this here, lights are there to give people a safer walk when they come home from the train station at night. East Greenville is has wrapped up its Beeler Park upgrades. Not playground equipment. We did not pay for that, although there is new playground equipment there. Put new pathways in the park. This is Barry Jeffrey's redesign of the park that they used to move forward with this project. They put in some new handicapped spaces here on the street. And when I went to take a walk, it looked nice. The new pathways look good.
Is Barry's name anywhere on them?
But maybe it is now. It wasn't quite done when I visited. Upper Providence Township received just under $30,000 from us to do some upgrades on a couple of road crossings on the Perkiomen Trail that runs through here. They wanted to make sure that it was better marked, I guess. I'll admit that, you know, as you walk on this trail and you come upon the road pretty quickly and drivers might have a hard time seeing you. So
It was not very visible to
I
drive
thought-
to those locations.
I thought they went from diagonal crossings to straighter crossings. Is it still diagonal?
they didn't do anything to reconfigure the road or the trail. But they installed new signage and new crossings. They're hard to see. But hopefully that it has done the trick. I ran across the road a couple of times myself.
Run across the road, you don't get hit by a car, right?
Exactly. I will say that these are trail crossings and not trailheads, so don't be stupid like me and visit without knowing that. All right, Worcester Township received $150,000 from us to do some upgrades to Mount Kirk Park. That includes this new gazebo and bathroom facility. paved this parking area, which had not been paved before, put up this fencing. There's a soccer field down below it. And it looks like a nice amenity for the neighborhood. It's kind of a tucked away spot. Royersford finished up its Second Avenue crosswalk. This may not look like much, but it connects a parking lot that's on this side of the street with Victory Park, I believe, it's over here. They're working slowly to make Victory Park more handicapped accessible, and this was one part of that project. Lower Salford Township has largely finished the work on their Aldifer Road and Park Avenue stormwater basins. It went out on a cold day to take these pictures, so they don't look like much, but they were meant to be planted. I'm sure they'll look nicer when it warms up a little bit. 2022 grant awards. Starting, there are only a handful of projects that finished up in the last year from the 2022 rounds, but first up, that's a project from Abington, right, Steve? Abington received $110,000 and change for a safe routes, sidewalk and crosswalk upgrades project. This is only partially done. So this is one half of the project. The other half I have already reviewed and I'm sure will be constructed shortly. But this provided a safe crossing to an elementary school and the neighborhood across the street from it. Perkiomen Township really tackled a big project with some of our grant funding, this Perkiomen Creek Tributary Restoration Project. You can see it's really big, just based on the scale of the people in this photo, one of whom I think is Drew. Drew and I went out to visit this site as it was underway. This project has wrapped up completely. I think that's it for 2022 and the pictures that I've got. And 2023, almost all of those are still underway with the exception of Springfield Township. The township received $200,000 from us to go toward the Hawes Lane open space acquisition. That was pretty much ready to go to settlement when we approved the funds. That land has been purchased and a large portion of the parcel that was purchased has been preserved and will have trails running through it to connect the senior residential facility on one side and the schools that are on the other side. That's it. Stay tuned for 2024. Will be lots of fun. It'll be me and Chloe this year reviewing and presenting applications to you.
How many applications have we received so far?
Zero.
That's not uncommon.
I expect all of them will show up on March 1st.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions for Ann?
It'll be interesting, Ann, to see if our change, the tweaks we've done make a difference in the type of projects, the number and the types of projects.
And where they're coming from with that change in the
Yeah, multi-municipal.
match fund. Be interesting.
And I believe we have 2 meetings already scheduled for review of the application.
Yes, not until April, but yes,
Right.
the 2 meetings have been set up and hopefully are prominently displayed on your calendars.
The 5th and the 19th.
That sounds correct.
Can you give us a reminder?
Yeah, some of us are more forgetful than others, for sure.
Oh dear, this is your reminder.
No,
You didn't see the point there.
We can remind them again in March. We can commit to that, right? At
It's
this
on my
meeting.
calendar. It's on my calendar. I'll be there.
Was it the hour version or the 3-hour version? Get that straightened out.
I was not able to change the doodle poll, but everyone has a 3-hour
The
appointment.
calendar invite is what's, yeah.
Calendar invite.
Like a calendar invite is 3 hours?
We're gonna need it. It's a lot to get through.
Is it here or is it?
We're here, right?
We'll be here. If you can't physically be here in person, there will be a Zoom option to join in. But we like seeing you in person.
How else can we arm wrestle to make sure our project makes it on the work list?
All right,
All right,
I think Veronica is up next.
Veronica.
She's waiting in the.
Like how time flies, it seems like you were
Stand
just
up
here.
and shake it out for
Yeah.
recycling, you're ready to go?
Now, I have one question. Where can I get rid of 425 fluorescent light bulbs?
They're hard.
No,
Should I bring-
there's,
Should I bring them to the next meeting?
don't bring them to the meeting and don't bring them to the residential hazardous waste collection. But there are about 3 companies on our A to Z guide on our recycling website that specialize in recycling fluorescent bulbs.
That
So-
will cost me, right?
I don't think it's a very high price, but if you have more, if you have more than a handful. Yeah, if you have more than a handful of bulbs, I don't want them for a residential collection. But if you are renovating a building or such, these companies specialize in taking all of those bulbs at once, and they have mercury in them. So it's not a small thing. It's actually an important thing. And if you dispose of them properly, you are doing environmental good that I would say is rather substantial.
So
So
burying them in a landfill in Worcester next to Bob's house is not a good thing.
I would say it's not good, but the interesting is
That's not the only thing that's gonna get buried.
there's a lot of things in landfills that get buried, that's true. What happens with the bulbs is, once they break, the mercury vapor goes airborne. So you're actually killing, the trash truck men. And Bob will be safe near his landfill. But when you put them in a dumpster or trash truck, once they crush, that vapor, that's where it goes.
Gotcha.
So a lot of my work protects our sanitation workers and our first responders, believe it or not. It sounds like recycling is just at your house, but who actually kind of pays the price when we don't do the right thing is the people that are throwing trash in the back and the guys that are dumping it in a landfill and flattening it out. And even the workers in the recycling centers that get, when we put needles in, they're the ones that get stuck in the hand. And I mentioned the first responders because when people don't bring their materials to our household hazardous waste events, and then you have a fire, now you have explosions in the house, in the garage. Now you have chemicals catching fire and the first responders breathe them in and, have cancer and such. So I know recycling seems like bottles and cans, but a lot of it is actually life and death and safety. Yeah, so.
Any other questions for
That's strong. All right, so this is my beautiful logo that Troy made for me a couple years ago. All right, so this is a boring slide. You've seen this from me for many years now. We don't have a lot of excitement in trash and recycling. Maybe that's good. To me, it's bad. The population we have, very steadily increasing in Montgomery County. The trash, we kind of see a slight steady increase, and recycling is basically flat. So what this tells us really is that there's no policy change happening on the federal level. There's no policy change happening on the state level. And really, municipality is not the place that we can do big shakeups on recycling. So unless something, cataclysmic happens, this is kind of just the way this is going to keep going, unless we start seeing some policy change. Again, the recycling rate in Montgomery County, you can see 34% back in 2014, 33% in 2022. It's just, we're kind of stuck. These are national numbers as well, by the way. If you put, what's happening in the United States up against my numbers, you're basically getting 32, 33% for the country.
Is
So
there capacity to go higher
definitely.
in the county? So if all of a sudden you ended up with another 5-10% recycling.
Of recycling.
Does the county have the
Well,
resources currently to handle the uptick?
the processing doesn't really happen on a county by county level. So yeah, regionally, definitely. We have a very robust region. We have plastic recycling happening actually in Montgomery County. We have a bottle to bottle plastic recycling happening here. One of the largest paper recyclers is Newman Paper in Philadelphia. We have metal recycling, at least collection all around us. So yeah, we're well positioned. The state is well positioned. What we hear when I go to these conferences and hear national speakers is that we need more incoming from the public, that we do have the capacity in the recycling, but that people aren't putting enough into their bins is kind of that is definitely not the whole story. I am not blaming the public. This is a systemic problem, but there is capacity. And if we do a better job increasing our volume, we can process it. Yeah.
The rate is 33% of what could be recycled, or 33% of the trash in a household is recycled?
Yes, the latter. So in other words, if you have a pile of 100 pounds, 33 of those pounds are recycled, and 67 of those pounds go into the incinerator or the landfill. And I will also mention that 33% is not just bottles and cans, it's also our yard waste and our food waste. So
Construction waste still?
no, that's a separate category, yeah.
So Veronica, do you have a sense of what percentage, if we were recycling everything we could, what percentage that would be of the 100 pounds?
Yeah, we should be able to recycle about 75%.
Really?
Yeah, we're pretty far away.
Does that happen anywhere?
I don't think it happens anywhere. The places in the US at least that do the best, there's a couple of places in California. There's some places overseas, like in Europe and even in Asia, some communities in Japan where it's a very thoughtful process.
All the way from the packaging into the way goods are sold.
Yeah.
It starts, kind of step.
Again, it comes to policy. So like there's a national bill called Break Free from Plastic Pollution. It's been introduced for at least the past 4 years. It's never moved out of committee. And, part of that bill is just to say styrofoam, expanded polystyrene foam is not recyclable. So that should be taken off the market. It also has some toxic health-based components that make it problematic. So that should be taken off the market. Things like your plastic spoons they're not recyclable. They should be taken off the market. They can be bamboo or cornstarch, or, there's things that are policy that are systemic that we just will never, as hard as each one of us tries, we can't beat certain things if the system is against us.
So a question for you.
Yes.
Do you have is there numbers? Or what's the word I'm looking for here? By age of.
This is last year's question.
Well, it is, because I constantly am picking stuff out of the recycling. My 23-year-olds cannot figure out, does not go into the recycle or into the proper recycling. Like
Yeah.
yesterday or Monday it was, I had to pick out a paper bag out of the plastic recycling.
Oh,
because
okay.
I guess my engineering graduate didn't understand the difference between paper
Yeah.
and plastic.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I have to clean up a lot of the trash versus recycling in the office, so maybe it's an engineer problem.
Yeah. Well, my son is an engineer and he is an excellent recycler. So I'm going to
So am
debunk
I.
this engineering myth. He's 26. Yes. And he's lived in Wilmington in a development that didn't offer recycling because it was so contaminated. The development pulled the recycling. He brought it home to me every other week to recycle. So,
What are there national statistics on?
oh,
I guess the aptitude to recycle.
there is some.
Awareness?
There is some age data on this. There's actually quite a lot of psychology involved in recycling. It seems like an operational issue, but believe it or not, it's a lot of it is psychology studies that people do in the recycling world. And age is a part of it. And I will say that it corresponds to when you have, I would say, more time, the luxury of time to kind of consider things and go through the steps of maybe washing it or sorting it. So when you're, you know, slightly older, slightly more affluent, your recycling rates are better. When you're trying to figure out, you know, if you can pay bills and feed children, it all just goes in the trash. It's not in the top 10. So that there's an age component there, but it's also linked to other demographic factors. The thing about recycling, they kind of divide us, I guess, with a lot of social issues into certain categories of like the people that will, you know, jump over a canyon to recycle a piece of plastic, right? Like they'll do anything to make it happen. Like you have your real bought in group, and then you have sort of your middle of the road people that if they see a can and a trash can or recycling can right next to each other, they'll do the right thing. And then you have your group of people that they're gonna throw the trash in the recycling just to mess with me, right? Like that's an actual group of people who I have met. So
That's what my kids are doing.
right, my point is, this might be a passive aggressive assault on you.
So it's your fault.
When I find I will hear my daughter telling her friends how to recycle, and then in my house, she just leaves it all on the counter for me. So do you see what I'm saying? There are some issues that might be personal and not, you know, not reflective of their specific age. But a lot of it does come to just if we do it the right way and make it simple enough for people. So let me just to finish that thought. So I kind of say salt and pepper shakers always have to be next to each other on the table. Like a recycling bin and a trash bin always have to be next to each other. You can't put the recycling over there and the trash over there and hope people are going to look around and find the right thing. And that hits your vast middle of the road of the population that wants to do the right thing. They're not trying to mess with me, but they're also not going to go way out of their way to do it right. So if again, in a policy way, we make it simple and straightforward, and you don't have to have a PhD to know how to recycle, which currently you do, that it's the system. It's not us as individuals. A lot of us try pretty hard.
I've noticed down the shore that there's
That's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I noticed down the shore that they're getting rid of the plastic bags at the
Grocery.
Acme's and the Wawas and things like that. So it's a step in the right direction. I
Yes.
think.
State by state, we're doing some good things. And in Pennsylvania, we can't get bag legislation. But we do have, Montgomery County is actually the leading county behind Philly and Allegheny for bag bans. So we are not doing it on a county level, but on a municipal level, we have maybe about 15 municipalities now that have bag bans in place. And that's not just because I want to make your life difficult and I'm going to punish you for not remembering your reusable bag. Those bags cause litter, they blow away. But the big cost of those bags is, where do they go? They go down into the creek or into the sewers, and then we're backing up our water treatment plants. That all has to be dug out for the water treatment to work properly and for the storm water drainage to work properly. So there's huge kind of infrastructure costs for a plastic bag that it's like, pay the extra 10 cents and get on with your life and, stop rallying against we're trying to save the infrastructure. And you're going to pay for that money. You're going to pay to clean out those plastic bags if we keep selling them. So it's not free either way is the reality of plastic bags.
My question was on commingling. My
Yes.
new trash hauler has commingling. So in my trash, I put my paper
Yeah.
and everything else. It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
But is it effective? Do they separate it, or is it really just?
So probably about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, this analysis was done that the very big cost in recycling is the transportation and collection, right? That's really your biggest cost, is having the trucks and having the people out there that have to collect everything. So we used to run two routes. We would have a paper route, separate trucks, separate guys, and then a container route, separate trucks, separate guys. So the financial analysis was done, if we just put it all in one truck, what's that gonna cost us and what's the benefit? So the benefit is you're cutting your collection costs in half. And the cost, the sort of downside of doing that is now your paper is going to get whatever schmutz is in the containers on your paper, right? So you're degrading your paper value. Your containers aren't suffering terribly, but your paper value degrades. And that is mostly for your mixed paper. So cardboard isn't going to be too badly damaged in this process, but just a nice piece of paper is going to probably not come out of that as well as it would. So the Lower Marions and the Abingtons have made the decision that they want to keep their paper clean. They do a separate pickup. It's worth it because they can sell their paper. The rest of the townships have made the decision that they're going to mix it all together. They're going to have to pay to get rid of their paper. Their paper's not worth money anymore because it's dirty. But that they're saving the money on the collections. Is there more what we call residue, meaning the waste that we can't recycle at the end of the day when it's a single stream? Definitely. Not all that paper is gonna make it through to the end. The paper that comes out of Abington and Lower Marion is beautiful, very clean, goes.
Beautiful paper.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful paper.
It goes right to Newman paper and it gets recycled almost immediately
Those
into
pizza boxes.
into our cereal boxes is really what Newman does.
So if you bind your paper, so it stays together, that doesn't help.
It doesn't, because the way that the processing works it's called a MRF, the material recovery facility. It all gets dumped on the floor. It kind of gets ripped at with the forklifts and then it gets put on a conveyor belt. It's kind of going to get ripped at there. Your binding's not really going to get us it's a good thought. And I do put my paper in a paper bag just with the idea in my head that it stays together a little better. But the reality is it just is jostled in a trash truck or a recycling truck. So
I know you have expectations.
We're gonna get to the hazardous waste part of this?
Well, no, but the questions are like.
no, that's good.
We're making fun of some of it, but the reality is some of the information you're given is important and valuable to understand the whole system. And I think the two things that I take away from, and I'm not even going into what you're going to get into in your presentation, which we'll run out of time with. But the two things I want to say is the one thing you said, which is extremely important, is a change in the industry of what, and Nicole said it was to bring stuff to the market that is recyclable instead of keep putting out things that are not recyclable. And then the other thing is just the complications in handling recycling material, and if there was some standard in how everybody was doing it, would you have a greater ability to recycle material and more inclusion, or would you have more involvement in recycling? And those are like the two biggest things that I take away from that. All the other stuff, joking aside, is important issues, but I mean, that was the first thing I said, which is changing the packaging, putting out things that are recyclable. So, and instead of putting out stuff that is, why does bread have to be put in a plastic bag? Is there something else that it can be put into?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the policy, again, like I work on the legislative committee for the state for recycling. And I started doing that just a few years after I took this job, because that's how we fix, we can talk about this every week and, discuss it and figure out little tweaks here and there. But until we fix things like plastic that is non-recyclable should not be used for packaging. We need to have a statewide standard that aluminum cans cannot go in the trash. That's just the law. It doesn't matter if you live in a 5,000 person township or a 50,000 person township. And right now that's what decides if an aluminum can goes in the trash or recycling, is how many people live in your municipal subdivision. It makes no sense. So until we get some policy on the state level that says these are materials that must be recycled. If you get a trash dumpster for your business, you also have to have a recycling dumpster for your business. If you have a trash can pickup at your house, you also have to have a recycling can pickup at your house. I mean, these are just basic things. We have a state SWAC, Solid Waste Advisory Committee for Pennsylvania that has, you know, a 2-page list of what I'm saying to you right now. Like, these are just the most basic things that we need to change that the recyclers agreed on with the haulers. So this isn't just me with my wish list. This is like a statewide group, and the legislators are not doing anything with this. DEP was in on this. I mean, this is 2 pages of implementations of how we need to adjust the current recycling law, which is a single law. It you know, just needs some edits. And it's from '88, so it's 35 years of no edits, 35 years of no updates. I've changed in 35 years. Things have changed. The recycling law has not. Some of us have not, but some of us have. And the recycling law, a lot of materials have changed. A lot of things have changed in the state, and the recycling laws have not changed in 35 years. So yes, there is some policy that we need to do something on. And again, it's not controversial. We have all the sides came in on these two pages of lists. So
When you have to pay for your bags, I know I'm in California a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the first things I know, I mean, sometimes I carry my bags to California, kind of crazy, but you have to pay 10 cents, you know,
to get a bag.
It makes a difference. I look in, everybody comes into the supermarket with their bags.
I forget the exact number, but it's upwards of 85%. When you say a bag costs 5 or 10 cents, 85% of the people will start bringing their own bags. So you, more or less. So you have 15% that are going to pay the 10 cents. Fine, that money is going to go probably to an environmental project. I'm not even mad at that. So put your 10 cents into a cleanup project, but the other 85% of us are going to start bringing our own bags. And we've all seen this. I mean, I have a mother-in-law who will, you know, love to laugh at me carrying my reusable bags. And now instead of paying 10 cents, she carries her own reusable bags when we're in New Jersey. So you can change even the toughest, you know, the toughest critic on this. All right. I'm going to continue.
On to where the facility is. I want to see how close we are to the facility.
I have more questions, but I'm good.
No, I'll stay for the day. I'm, you know.
You need a hard.
Take number and spot on the agenda.
It's starting to get jealous.
And they're gonna put my name on everything that's in the agenda now. All right, I'm not gonna dive too deep into this slide, but I do think it's interesting to point out that, you know, upwards of 95% of our trash from Montgomery County goes to 6 facilities. And they are in Montgomery County, Berks, and York, and then, you know, a little goes up to Bucks County. So when the trash comes out of our house, it does stay right here in our local area. We don't have any active landfills in Montgomery County. The waste to energy facility in Covanta, in Conchie is where, you know, about 40% of our trash goes. And then we have, you know, Mascaro's facility in Berks County, and a few others there. So just to give you an idea where the trash goes when it leaves your house or leaves your business.
Do you have a sense of why Covanta's numbers went down that 4%? Is there any like thing that leads to that, or is it just?
Well, there are things that lead to that. So waste to energy has some controversy around it. You may be familiar with the Delaware County issues going on around the Chester waste to energy plant. So there's burning, you know, and waste to energy means incineration, and then you use the heat and the steam to make electricity. But when you burn something, there's pollution, and different facilities are built at different times and have different levels of abatement built in, and have invested different amounts of money to improve that abatement and to lower their emissions. But there are emissions involved with waste to energy. So you do have municipalities in Montgomery County that have decided we don't want our trash going to incineration. We want our trash going to landfill. We don't want to get involved in the burning system. And so they will take their trash, which could go 2 miles to the incinerator, 15 miles to the landfill in a 10-ton trash truck that eats up the roads and spews diesel gas pollution. So I'm not taking a side. I'm trying to paint the picture. But what I will say is that Covanta is in Plymouth Township, a very well-run township that watches what's happening, and they are not going to just let crazy things be coming out of the stack into the air. So from my watching of Plymouth, and Drew also watches Plymouth, they're on top of their pollution controls. They do the best they can. At the end of the day, you are burning trash. So it's not going to be mountain air, but they really do take the particulates out, the SOx, the NOx, the mercury, there's a lot of pollution controls that go in. But I would say that's what that drop is. If you have a whole township that's saying, we're not letting you take our trash anymore, we're going to truck it, that will, and that happens a couple times, that'll hit that number.
Right, so landfill.
Yeah. Trash doesn't ever evaporate. We're still not shooting it out into space. It's gonna stay here. So it's gonna go in a landfill or it's gonna be burned. And when you burn it, you still have about 15% of it left that has to go to a landfill.
Right.
When you burn a log, you've got ash at the bottom of the fireplace. When you burn trash, you've got ash left behind. The cool thing about the incinerator is that ash actually gets mined for metal before it goes to the landfill. So any ferrous or non-ferrous metal that goes to the waste to energy facility actually gets recycled.
How much percentage of that, of the ash do they get out of it?
They get a lot of metal,
Really?
like a lot of metal, like tons of metal. That reporting comes to me, and that's tons of metal. We throw away a lot of little pieces of metal. You don't think about it, but just little things in your house that you end up tossing, even aluminum foil that gets burned down to like a little nugget, and then they can magnet that out. So that's an interesting thing about waste to energy. Metal is really your most important recyclable. We have to mine that out of deep in the earth. We have to do a lot of processing to get the metal out of the rock to, break the ore. So if we can recycle metal, that's throw away whatever you want in front of me. Do not throw away metal. Like, we need to recycle metal.
There's not more reason why we should throw away like the fluorescent tubes, because they have one.
If you take it to the place, we'll recycle the metal and the mercury. But in there, the mercury, I'll go mercury over metal even. All right, so that's where your trash is going. A few special materials. I'll go through this pretty fast. Basically, what we call special materials is stuff that you can't just throw in your curbside recycle. So you have a recycling bin at your house or your office. These are things that if you put into the regular curbside recycling are not going to make it through. So we have campaign yard signs, electronics and textiles, and then household hazardous waste, which is, the one where people can.
And that's, it's interesting because you talk about the bag bans.
Yeah.
But most of these campaign signs are those the plastic covers that go in the metal frames.
Yeah.
And they're no different than the plastic bags.
Yeah. So let's get into that a little bit. The campaign yard signs, I think I have a picture of it. So on the left, this is one of our drop-off sites. The signs are on a metal stand, which you see we collected and put in a dumpster on the right. But on the left, you can see the signs are mostly this plastic bag material, which you just put over, or they're a polypropylene, which is your heavy plastic. That's that corrugated plastic. Yeah, so we can, again, both of these can be recycled, just not in the regular recycling. So we do this little project every November, and it's just for a week after Election Day. We have a 1-week drop-off period. We have 16 sites around the county. They're mostly municipalities where people can drop off these signs. We take the signs and the metal stands. Again, they're recyclable, but not in your regular curbside. And this is a very low cost program. It costs, other than our staff time, the county correctional facility in Eagleville, they actually do, they work so well with me and they do a lovely service for us that they actually go out and collect all of these from the 16 sites and they sort them. And then we have a recycler that some of the material goes, actually all of the material they didn't charge us for, but we do have to pay for the dumpsters if a recycler brings a dumpster to the facility. So,
How do candidates know about this?
I'm sorry.
How do candidates know about this program?
So I'm in contact with the Democratic committee and the Republican committee. And the Democratic committee actually is one of our drop-off points. The Republican committee is in a office building that they can't be a drop-off. But I'm in contact with both parties. I send them the flyer and they send the flyers to their candidates.
The Green Party's not the problem.
That would be ironic if the Green Party was causing all of our campaign sign trouble.
Serious topic here, Scott.
Listen. If we can't have some fun with recycling, I'm just gonna stand up here and cry. So let's laugh while we can, because it's the reality is there's things we need to change that I'll cry if I think about too long. So this is our flyer. Again, it's just November of each year. Again, this is one of the 16 drop-off sites. Everyone figures out their own configuration, which is kind of fun to go drive around and see what they do. And then at the end, we have a dumpster for the metal stands. We have a dumpster for the plastic bag signs, and we have a dumpster for the corrugated plastic. And all three of them get recycled separately. If they all got just put into regular recycling, they would come out as residue and just be trash. So this is the way we actually get them recycled. And the media always, I can do anything, they don't care. When I do these campaign signs, the media, I'm like a media darling. So usually it's just a news article that they want to print. But this year, Matt DeLucia from Channel 10 came out and did actually filmed me, and they did a really funny little news piece that the Planning Commission watched. It was very cute. So worldwide fame this year with campaign signs. All right, so the next material that does not go in your normal curbside recycling is electronic waste and textiles. So textiles meaning your clothing, shoes, belts, tablecloths, curtain, anything that's kind of a fabric. And electronic waste, obviously, TVs, computers, and such. So this is an interesting program. We actually, a few municipalities, I think, tried them out in 2018, and then we did a countywide contract in 2019. And I'll say this is the easiest contract I've ever managed. This is like just a dream. People love this service, and it really costs us very little time and effort and no money from the county. So what this program does, this is a retriever program, and this is kind of funded by a national group of large companies that want to promote recycling. So I don't know that they're really making money doing this, but they definitely collect a good amount of material and get some recycling done. So what happens is you can either go on this retriever.com website, or you can call or text that number, and then you say, I have a computer, I have a TV, I have 3 bags of clothes. And then they send this truck out to your house and they pick it up. So there's a cost for some of the things. I think televisions are up to $38 a TV. They used to be $30, but the price has gone up. But they pick it up and they recycle it. And these are going to certified recyclers. So this is not ending up in a landfill. And the interesting thing with the textiles is if it's something that they can resell or give to the Goodwill or sell to the Goodwill, they'll do that. But they also work with actual recycling. So like they'll sort out the cottons, and you can break the cotton down and then make new cotton clothing, or polyester is something that you can actually break down and recycle into new polyester uses. So they're like my son, who was such a great little recycler. Love him so much. He'll say, oh, this shirt's gross. I don't want to put this in Goodwill. But I'll say, put it in because they can maybe just recycle the cotton. It might not be a shirt someone else is going to wear, but the fabric is now actually being recycled. So that's pretty exciting. And that's work that Retriever is involved in. And we were lucky to be one of their first contracts. Philly followed us, but we came before Philly. So it's not a ton of households we're serving. 2023, we did 2,000 households. We're up to 3,005. I think because the cost has gone up a bit, it's a little bit, maybe fewer people are doing it, but you can see the pounds. I mean, 144,000 pounds of e-waste that maybe people didn't have anything else anywhere else for it to go. There's not a lot of outlets in Montgomery County for e-waste. So, it's a really important number, if nothing else. And then I should note, there's 6 municipalities that have their own contract with Retriever, and they get their own reporting directly, and those numbers aren't included in this. So this number is actually quite a bit bigger because those are 6 pretty big municipalities that do their own program with Retriever. So it's a great program. And again, it's free to the county. We just promote it periodically to let people know about it. All right, so this is the big boy, household hazardous waste. This is the toxic and flammable materials. And this is an environmental issue, but the thing that really hits my heart is that it's a safety issue for our first responders and for our sanitation workers. And I can get pretty upset thinking about that we're not the county, but the state is not doing more to protect these people that are really frontline workers. And there's really a lot we can do that we're not doing. In Montgomery County, we're doing a lot. But statewide, I'd like to see a lot more. Again, this is policy that we're not putting in place. So what is household hazardous waste? We're talking about gasoline, oil, antifreeze, which is toxic, oil-based paint, pool chemicals, that chlorine gas is very dangerous, mercury, flares, fire extinguishers, any kind of compressed canister is something that when it gets hit in the trash truck explodes and causes like a mini sonic boom that has killed sanitation workers. Lead acid batteries we're doing pretty well on as far as getting those recycled, fluorescent tube bulbs, mercury, and then mini propane containers. We take those at the events. So this is our new flyer. Juliana updates these every year for me so beautifully. And we're doing 6 events this year. One of our sites decided that it was more important to let the sports teams in every weekend than to let us have a day. So we did lose one of our event sites for this year. But the good thing I want to point out on this is Covanta, we have been working for years to try to get an agreement with Covanta in Plymouth to help us fund these events because these keep toxic chemicals from being incinerated and contaminating the stack. And we were able to reach an agreement just about a month ago with Covanta, and they're going to be contributing a nice amount to our hazardous waste events annually. So I'm really grateful for that.
Latex paint,
Yes.
take the lid off, let it dry out and throw it out normally.
Yeah, so latex is interesting. If I had a facility, I would like to take it and recycle it. It is recyclable, but the problem is when you're collecting hazardous waste, you're paying multiple times more than it would cost just to recycle it, in a normal day in a normal building. Because I've got 50 guys coming from 3 states with the, DEP permit and the hazardous waste transporting license. And, we're kind of prepared and paying for the worst case scenario.
Per pound.
So
it's
per
expensive.
pound. So when latex paint comes in, it just, we're paying so much for something that is, latex means plastic. It's just plastic and it's non-toxic and it can just dry and it can just be put in the trash. and you're paying pennies to put it in the trash, and you're paying dollars to bring it to the hazardous waste facility. So, or the hazardous waste event. So that's why we say just dry it and put it in the trash. And unfortunately, it is recyclable. I mean, fortunately, it's recyclable, but we don't have a way to do that economically at these events. Again, there's a state law that about 10 states have that the paint stores have to take the paint back, and then the paint gets recycled. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's very easy, and it's very efficient. And we can't do it here in Pennsylvania because we can't get that far. So, again, not going to go through these numbers, but just to give you a general picture, you know, we are still collecting. This is 500,000 pounds of hazardous waste, and this is only 7 events. I mean, ideally, we would be doing this. We would have a site open every day, and we would be collecting, you know, at least twice this. That's what's in people's homes, and that's what's getting just stored dangerously, because again, if there's, God forbid, a fire, the first responders are dealing with these chemicals that are now on fire. And you know, people just don't have, if they can't come to one of these 7 weekends, they're just keeping it, or worst case, they're throwing it in the trash, and then we have trash truck fires or injuries. So it's a lot of waste that's out there, a lot of waste that we're collecting. Cost that we paid last year of $540,000 for the events. We get $100,000 for the DEP grant, but that still leaves us paying $440,000. You can see we're serving, you know, 5,000 to 7,000 I say participants, but we count cars. Since COVID, we're not interviewing every car. So this is how many cars come through. And yeah, it's quite expensive. If we did this another way, with a drop off, we could collect about twice the material for the same cost. So I do want to point out, because this is something that I've been working on for 4 or 5 years now, the $100,000 is reimbursed by DEP each year. That's the maximum per county by law. And it's supposed to cover 50% of our costs, which, you know, for maybe 10 or 15 years it did. Now it's covering less than 20% of our cost. We need legislative action to get this grant increased. I've had this introduced for 3 sessions now in the Senate. This session, Senator Pennycook introduced it at Senate Bill 418. It has still not even gone to vote in committee. I've gotten it out of committee once, but it has never gone up to vote in the Senate. No one is opposed to this. This does not increase the budget. This is just money that's already there that needs to be coming to the counties to run these events. And I can't get this thing to move. The way that we run our program is that municipalities and residents are not charged. It would generally be too expensive for municipalities to run these, and really takes a level of expertise that they don't have and shouldn't have to have. Our program is the 2nd largest in the state, and it's only behind Lancaster County because they have a permanent drop off. So they're open 6 days a week collecting this stuff that we collect 7 times a year. So if we got our site, we would definitely be the biggest in the state. So that brings us to the dream.
But we can just, we're running.
And this is the last slide.
completely because
Yep.
of Questions.
No.
Mainly by me, so.
That's good. We're at the end. So if we could have this recycling center in the county, we would collect the hazardous waste, we would collect the e-waste, we could take these miscellaneous recyclables, you know, reduce illegal dumping, and really be a hub that people who are excited about this or interested in it or feeling discouraged about it would have a place to come and kind of see what's really going on and feel good about it. And the place that we're looking at is the Ivy Rock landfill. I don't think this has moved at all since I showed you this last year as far as moving this forward. I think we've been thinking about this for about 4 years now. We have made no progress. So it's a tale of woe. This is not, this is going nowhere fast. We have money. The money has been allocated by the county for years. It's not a money issue. If you give me the piece of land, I will get you this building in 2 years, but like you got to get me the piece of land. So I'm not getting the land. maybe someone else can.
It's the difficult- At the landfill, it's the difficulty of moving the site, and it's taken longer than anyone wanted it to, but it did get just officially cleared by DEP, but it's still a process to get to that point where all these things can be done. So we're looking.
But
for-
if you have another piece of land, I only need about 5 acres. I'll buy it. I have money. Just let me know. Doesn't have to be here.
Any other questions for Veronica? Thanks, Veronica, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Grant funding success summary. And I think I got myriad of high-powered individuals in that county. Matt, Drew.
Good morning again, board. Last month, Scott asked us to put together a concise presentation that gives you guys as the board a little bit of insight into the world of grants that we as a planning commission have entered into, and our municipalities as well. We're gonna get into that just a little bit. We'll wait for this to come up. But once we do, that second slide, just gonna go over a couple of things about where we're headed here in this conversation, because when you think of grants, right, it tends to be a very monolithic type of thing. But the reality is that there are a lot of different entry points into the world of grants. And so we want to cover a couple of those for everyone. And so that was me. You running this? Give me the mic. I don't know where I am. All right. So that's what we really want to just discuss briefly is the funding success that we have had in the county, both from a planning commission standpoint, but also from our partners. So we're going to break it down into 5 things. First off, it's like two big headings, right? The grants that we receive and we deal with here in the planning commission, but then also the grants that our partners deal with. And within those two worlds, we're going to cover these 5 things. Competitive grants for big programs. Drew's going to talk about that first and really go into all the different programs that we have our hands in and we're getting grants from. The grants that come and pay for staff time is the second thing. Funding for large infrastructure projects, trails and roads in particular. They're not traditional grants, but it is money that comes back to our county and we manage it. And then of course, the things that we're pursuing in 2024. But then also at the very end, the world outside of the planning commission, how successful is our county? The answer is actually very successful, and we'll get into that. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Drew to talk a little bit about their significant projects.
Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everyone. It's still morning. Yeah, there'll be a little bit of overlap, but just to give you an idea of the types of grants we're working with, and this is a snapshot, what we're currently working with. Here they are. We're managing about 20 grants currently. On the left-hand side, under the colored dots, you can see the numbers of grants under each program. On the right-hand side is the various programs we're involved with now, and that could change. 3 years from now, the list could be different. And I'm not going to go over all of these, but just to give you an idea of the broad scope, we're working with a lot of grants. I guess it's the bottom line. This is probably a better way of looking at it. On the left-hand side, I've broken down the various agencies that we're working with and the percent of funding we're getting from grants. And you can see, Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, that's the farmland preservation program. It's 25% of the grant funding we're getting this year. And then the other big block is DCED with a number of different programs. And ARPA is a big chunk of what we're working with now, but that was a one-time thing. And eventually we'll be done with those. So it does change from year to year. Probably more of interest is the purpose of the funding. And you can see there again, the 2 big blocks. Farmland preservation and trail construction at the top, the cream color and the dark or the reddish brown. 50% almost of all of our funding is going to those 2 programs. But there are some other large areas, facilities, construction, planning and studies. We get a lot of grants for that. And I'll just mention that the 10%, little wedge there, is for the WSIC and floodplain restoration in White Marsh Township, which is unusual. It's not the type of project we do every year. So it goes for various sources, various projects. Now I just want to run through a couple examples just to give you again the idea of the breadth and scope. The County Stormwater Planning Update is an ARPA funded program. This is one of the projects that we got money from ARPA allocated to us. You see the numbers there. 6.15 billion came to Pennsylvania, 161 million came to Montgomery County. And then we have a large number of projects. The Recovery Office is involved in a lot of different things, but for us at the Planning Commission, one of the things we're working on is a stormwater planning update that will assess county level stormwater issues and develop solutions. It's not going to include the Perkiomen Creek because we have a flood study. It's a different story. But eventually, with the data we collect through the flood study, we may do some stormwater planning as well. Grants also come in for components of large projects. Montco 2050 is a large project, just ask Ann, she'll tell you. One component of that is outreach, and we're particularly concerned that we reach a fair percentage of everybody in the county. And there's underserved and underrepresented communities. And so we secured a grant from DCED, their municipal assistance program, to do some outreach to make sure everybody's voice, or everybody has a chance to make their voice heard. So it's an example of just a funding that goes to almost like a little boutique kind of aspect of the larger project. Kind of at the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got a long-term program that is funded by grant money from the state. The Farmland Preservation Program has been around since 1990. You can see there the success we've had with it. But this is something that occurs year after year after year. The county puts money into its budget and it's matched by the state. And it's enabled us to do some great things and to preserve some great farms and a lot of farming activity associated with that. But it's an example of a long-term program that is funded by grant money. And then lastly, there's some very big projects underway. Matt's got some big transportation projects. Bill's working on some big trail projects, and the Cross County Wissahickon Trails at Erdenheim Farm is an example. And there we've got 2 grants. So we have to go for multiple grants in order to fund this. And some grant programs allow you to use match from other programs. Some don't. There's all sorts of intricacies. But the bottom line is we're getting some big projects done. But it takes sometimes getting multiple grants from multiple sources.
All right, I'll jump back up and just a very brief window into grants that come into the Planning Commission that pay for staff time to do the things that staff normally do. So there's about maybe 5 at this point. And you'll see some repetitive things from other presentations this morning. They'll show up in this one here today. One of them is this Safe Streets and Roads for All grant that we almost opened up our meeting with, right? So the SRHPP, TSP, and GIS are 3 grants that Planning Commission's been getting from DVRPC for probably 2-3 decades. And that helps to pay for GIS's work and the transportation section's work. The recycling coordinator, that's from the same family as what Veronica was just talking about, the $100,000 grant to do our recycling program. There's a separate but related grant that helps to pay for her time and Donna's time. And so these are 5 different things that, again, help to pay for what we do. They underwrite our operating budget in a lot of ways. Just a small fraction of our operating budget, but still important. It defrays the cost of salaries and time spent by our folks in the community and environmental and GIS and transportation. And like, what does it mean literally? What do we do with our time that you can relate this to? It's all the things on this slide and more. Working with DVRPC on their long-range planning and operating the household waste collection program. Veronica just talked about the regional Vision Zero plan, programming the tip, a lot of things that you may not always see until you get to the very end product, but that's how it all flows through. So I'm going to give it over to Bill. He's going to talk about the large infrastructure projects that his section is notable for.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit to these large infrastructure grants or reimbursement programs that we regularly use to fund our projects. And when I say large infrastructure, we're talking about large, complex projects that require significant amounts of money. And we're talking millions or tens of millions of dollars. Typically, federal funding sources are the primary bucket that these monies come from, and programs like CMAQ, which is Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality, Carbon Reduction Program, which was part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, community project funding, or more commonly known as earmarks. Those are all examples of federal funding programs that we tap into. Usually these funds require coordination with agencies like DVRPC or PennDOT in the case of transportation projects. and they often require the placement of these projects on the tip. And as Matt said, they usually fund big, large-scale projects like roads, bridges, and trails. So I'm going to go over a couple of examples of these. There's the cross-country bridge and extension. This is the cross-county trail bridge over Germantown Pike where the trail currently ends, and then a 2-mile extension of the trail from there up to Joshua Road. We're starting preliminary engineering next quarter of this year. This is going to add the bridge, and it's going to add 2 miles to the existing trail. Very complex engineering project, especially with the bridge and the number of utilities and other factors in that area. We received $2.5 million from that earmark program, the Community Project Funding Program. There is a 20% match required of the county, which is about $625,000. All of this money, it looks like, is going to go toward engineering. If there's any left over, we can apply it towards construction. But the construction is going to cost in the range of $18 to $20 million for the bridge and the trail. So we're going to need money, even if there's money left over from the $2.5 million, we're going to need a lot of additional funding. And it's looking like we're probably going to tap into the CMAQ program to try and pay for 100% of that construction cost. Second project is one that you're all very familiar with because the transportation section and Edmond and Matt Popek talk about this project frequently. It's the full reconstruction of Ridge Pike, about 5 miles long, extending between Norristown and Philadelphia. Section B is currently under construction, which some of you may know from driving through it. Big project, almost $40 million in cost. So that's what we're talking about, these tens of millions of dollars. About $5.5 million of that cost was reimbursed to the county in 2023. And then lastly, another project that you're very familiar with, the Chester Valley Trail Extension. This added 4 miles of new multi-purpose, multi-use trail. It connected where the trail ended at King of Prussia up to the Schuylkill River Trail in Norristown. I wasn't here. I was here at the tail end of this project, but this was literally 2 decades in the making. Very complex, heavy right-of-way involvement, highly developed area, complicated engineering, but it was a really significant gap filler within the trail network. This project was paid 80% of the right-of-way acquisition costs were covered by CMAQ funds, and then 100% of construction management, and construction inspection costs were covered by the CMAQ funds, and those totaled about $18.5 million for that trail project. So these are expensive projects. In terms of grants that we're pursuing this year, this is obviously what we know right now. Things may come up as the year unfolds, but we have 3 in the hopper at the moment. I'm going to talk about these in a little more detail, but one grant we're exploring is for that White Marsh floodplain restoration project that Drew mentioned. The Trail Junction Center is another project that we're looking for funds to help pay for. And then there's a broader effort, which is actually a multi-county effort to expand the circuit trail network in southeastern Pennsylvania, with Montgomery County's focus on the cross-county trail. So the White Marsh floodplain restoration, it looks like we're going to be applying for a $200,000 C2P2 Rivers grant from Pennsylvania DCNR. This would be a supplement to the $1 million that we've already received from the statewide local share account program. We received that $1 million last year. This project is probably going to cost in the range of $3 million to actually construct. This is at Skipback Pike in White Marsh Township near Mathers Lane. This is where there was an excessive amount of clearing that happened. I'm not going to go into detail about why that happened, but we all know the result. I'm happy to talk about later, but it's going to be expensive. And what we're trying to do is restore the whole floodplain, not just replant it. So it's a big, expensive project. Trail Junction Center, we just recently submitted our round 2 responses for the America 250 PA Legacy Grant Program. This is a program that's being administered at the state level, and this is to help fund legacy infrastructure projects to help celebrate the 250th anniversary of the United States that will occur on July 4th, 2026. This money that we've applied for, the $1.5 million, go totally toward the construction costs of renovating the Trail Junction Center and the surrounding site. This would be added to $500,000 that we received from the LSA program in 2023 to help fund this project. And this project is gonna cost, at the end of the day, we think in the range of $5.5 million to do all of the site and building work. There is gonna be a gap, if you are quickly doing the math here, between what we are gonna get in grants and what it's gonna cost, and those funds are likely to come from the county capital budget.
Is that the place we went to on our?
Yes.
In Norristown, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
That's correct. And then lastly, this effort to expand the circuit trail network, as I said, in Montgomery County, we're focusing on the cross county trail. It's that map on the right shows all the different segments that we're focusing on. I'm not going to go into those, but there's several segments of the cross county trail that we want to start engineering and building. We're going to be seeking about $14 million in federal funds from the carbon reduction program, which is part of the infrastructure law that will help pay for engineering and construction management. We're going to be looking for about $20 million in federal CMAQ funds, some of which I discussed earlier for the Germantown Pike Bridge, to help fund these expansions of the Cross County Trail. We think that all of these projects on the Cross County Trail to engineer, construct, and then manage are going to cost in the range of $40 million. That's a big chunk of money, although it's the same cost as Section B of Bridge Pike. So let's put it in perspective. But that's a lot of money for trails. And it's going to take a lot of time to do this, but these federal buckets are the place where that money is going to come from to help pay for that.
All right, thanks, Bill. And I'm just gonna close with just a little bit outside of our planning commission border and the bigger borders of Montgomery County. So this next piece relates mostly to what Drew was talking about, right? So there are a world of grant programs where they give out anything between $50,000 and $3 million. Many of them are with the state, and our municipalities are applying for these things all the time, just like we are. They're the same programs that Drew had put up on his first slide. And so, you know, really what we wanted to say is how successful are we as a county, countywide, not county government, but countywide. So just a quick snapshot of 4 very popular programs, one that represents each of us. The reason why it's me and Drew and Bill is because we handle a lot of grants and they tend to be in transportation, environmentalism, and trail building. So, you know, just a couple of them, DEP Growing Green are over, 3-4 rounds, 22 projects totaling $4 million, right? On the other end there, DCNR, the C2P2, which has about 4 or 5 or 6 different sub-grant programs within it. It's an umbrella. 4.3 million over only 2 years, 17 awards, 6% of all the statewide dollars came back to our county. And then on the 2 multimodal funds that were created in 2013, there's a PennDOT one, and then there's one that completely is run by DCD and the Commonwealth Financing Authority. We run the numbers because we try to keep tabs on them because we have to do consistency letters. So we know when every application comes in. And so we're able to track going back to the very beginning. And you can see over the life of both of those programs, we've gotten $41 to $46 million in each one, and 70 to 103 awards. The success rate is well above probably what other counties have. And we get about 8.2% of statewide dollars, 9.3. This is important to remember. Montgomery County has 6.6% of the state's population. So we are punching above our weight in most all of these state grant programs. And that's the point that I wanted to make with these slides here at the end. It's not just us getting and managing grants, it's our partners, and they're doing a bang up job of it as well. You know, and these are just some of the examples of things that these programs fund. Some of these are Montgomery Award winners, right? And they get, 200,000 here, $1 million there, kind of like what Bill and Drew were saying, and you cobble together a project, and then it's awesome. So Park to Perkio and Trail Connector, that was a Montgomery Award winner last year. There was for Trestle Bridge, which Ann already mentioned earlier in this meeting. They got it from the Multimodal Fund. Schwenksville Borough Hall and Community Complex. We didn't even mention this program. The USDA's Rural Development Program gave them like $1 million to help do that. And then Whites Road Park, another Montgomery Award winner in recent years. They got one of the C2P2 programs. They got money out of it. So there has to be a couple of dozen of programs that open up every year and competitive. And our county probably gets, 50 of these things a year out of all these programs, some more, some less. And so it really adds up to a lot of things being funded in our county from big to small in the grant world. We're a part of that, but it's much bigger than us.
All those projects we just saw are 2040 grant recipients as well. So that shows the integration at different levels.
That's a great presentation.
And I suppose that I asked them to do that, not only for this board's benefit, but as it came to light, now that I've seen it, I'm really excited to make sure that our commissioners and our administration are brought up to speed and are aware of all this.
It's short and it's right to the point and it's a gangbuster.
Any questions for Metro or Bill? Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks.
Well done.
So, you wanna hold off on this, discussion on board engagement, so we have.
I would, but I'm willing to do like a 5-minute version just to kind of set the stage and then maybe the next month, yeah, we could have the discussion.
Yes, I don't want to shorten, I don't want to.
Yeah, and I have a few things on the director report. I'll make sure I get out too.
Yeah, so why don't you do that?
Okay. Robert, if you could find that in the folder, there's just a slide that will help me or help you. Yeah, so we put this on the agenda for board engagement and after this meeting, today's meeting, we have no issue engaging with our board, clearly. It's been a very interesting and productive meeting. But at the same time, we also had that workshop in December, which we heard great feedback from both from board members and staff. And just the opportunity that it brought out for us to really talk about issues and get more in depth in ways that we aren't always able to do. So, and over the last couple of years, especially since I've been here, I've had conversations with different folks, both staff and board, about looking for other opportunities in trying to bring more substance into some of our activities during our monthly meetings. So that kind of was the stem. I thought it was time to really bring this to the forefront. We came up with a few ideas that go along these lines. Some are simple, some are definitely more complex, but I'm just gonna throw out what those are right now, and then, like I said, next month we can put on the agenda and have discussion over what you guys think. I want to preface it all by saying, I personally don't feel we're deficient in how we do things. I looked around at other counties, our neighbors, and started agenda diving of what's online and seeing, what are they doing? And a lot of it looked very perfunctory. In fact, all of them really actually spend a lot of time through the Act 247 development reviews, and they're covering the letters they write. And we talked about this morning, I think maybe there's a little bit more we can do on that might be useful. But, this board, and it's been this way since I've been at the county, at least 20 years. It's meant to really bring things open and get feedback and get kind of this oversight body helping us and making sure what we do comes out stronger. So I want to balance that with both managing expectations and recognizing board member time, board member commitment is difficult, and we don't want to go too far, or I'm not looking to overturn the apple cart. Likewise, staff certainly has its burden, so we don't want to be putting us through paces that aren't necessary. But we thought there are good ideas, and that's what we want to explore. So if you can go to the first slide. Thank you. The main idea to think about. There we go. Is building off of that experience we had in December. And so we're thinking, could we do this on more of an annual basis and have a yearly workshop? Again, it would be issue-based discussion, much like we did with the comprehensive plan background. But I think the real opportunity is to relate it to the work program. So obviously starts maybe figuring out the timing of that, like July or September, which kind of puts us right ahead of the start of when our staff and management is looking at work program activities. That maybe this could help inform that to a degree. And then there's some questions I think we want to talk about. Is the small group approach, which is what we did in December and multiple sessions, is that is probably more effective on the surface. It does have a challenge of a lot being said at different times and trying to coalesce that and bring it together so that we come out with useful takeaways versus keeping it to a whole board, which I think has the con of not as easy to integrate staff into that discussion, as well as whether all voices are heard when we have a larger group. So I think there's a lot to talk about on that. The other items, do we want to maybe give a spotlight to our sections once a year on a rotating basis and really dive a little deeper into what those sections are doing and have those discussions at that time? Maybe you could argue there's some overlap, or we could, if we didn't do the annual workshop, maybe we bring out some of that stuff within some of these spotlight activities, when we talk about one particular section. So that's something to think about. And then the other big one of substance, I think, is adding a new component to how we think about what goes on the agenda. We're not shy, we'll put something when it's at the end, when we want to present it, when you want to share with you the result of something, whether it's, and maybe it's a combination of us and a partner, like the park transportation study we did a couple months ago, and had SEPTA and Pottstown, that meeting, or maybe DVRPC actually. And so but what we're thinking here is what we don't do, could we have a kind of a kickoff presentation where the pressure's not on, the onus isn't to say, to wow you with all the stuff we did, let's talk about, okay, we're just getting ready for this. Here, let's talk, here's the concept, this is the kind of audience, this is the product that we're thinking, implementation ideas, before anything's really necessarily set in stone, but has, been thought about, and get your feedback. And allow that input, those perspectives, which we have great ones on this board, and we value those. That's an even better time to learn about it and to integrate into the process since the project's just beginning. So I think that actually has a lot of potential. And then these are more quickly easy ones, and again, your feedback was welcome. Do we want to put a board member on an RFP review committee? We've had more and more of those lately, and there's usually 4 or 5 people, county staff, that are looking through the submissions and evaluating what to pick. If there's one that speaks to someone's expertise and they have the ability to participate in that, I'd love to open it up and maybe have one of you get involved with one of those. Accessibility for board members to participate in public events. I think that's something if you're interested, we could do more of. We do have groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings, press conferences, plus our Planning Smarter events. And I don't know that we really push you guys, and I don't think, obviously time commitment is the big thing, but if there is something that, again, you're interested in and want to be at, we want to make sure that's available to you. I think it bolsters our credibility as well. And then finally, I think just updating our bios, and making sure our staff is aware, who knows what, who's doing what. Like people may not know what Bob does in his professional life or personal life, but maybe we don't want to know that.
Yeah, be careful what you ask.
No.
If you talk to my wife, I don't do anything.
Right.
Does anybody really know what Bob does?
You might want to know these things. Yeah. Anyway, just transparency, disclosure, all that's good stuff. So those are the ideas. I'd love to come back next month and have more discussion on that.
Yeah, I think it's worth exploring. Yeah, I think it's worth a longer conversation, which is what it was set out to be, but
Yes.
I caused the agenda to be behind schedule, so I do think we'll put it on the agenda for next month, and if everybody can kind of give some thought as to how they would like to see themselves or the board be involved in some of the things that Scott threw out there, or other things, or other items that you would like to see the board involved in, then we can have that conversation next month. So, but I think it's worth looking at, and I think there's definitely opportunities for that to happen, so.
Can you send that, what you just, the
Yeah, I'll put this
slideshow?
out for the
Everybody.
Great, if you could remind me that.
Director's report?
Yep.
I
Okay.
appreciate you doing that. That's been a bugaboo for me. Other board members know that. I really appreciate you spending the time thinking about it, and then next time have a larger discussion. Thank you.
Staff news. First, I want to welcome our newest planner, Montco. Is there in the back. I think you've taken in this whole board meeting and you know what we do here.
It's never too late to leave.
Let Eric do that. Sweating on there.
Petruska, I think Margaret Petruska. Yeah, so she's getting community planner too. She is a graduate of Lehigh University with undergraduate double major in global studies and political science with a minor in environmental studies. And then she stayed there for her master's degree, which is in environmental policy. She'll be working with Springfield Township, Upper Gwinnett Township, and then helping with the regional plans, comprehensive plan updates we're doing in Indy Valley, Central Brook, and Pottstown. That's what she was doing, but Margaret wanted to say any additional words about herself?
Welcome.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I'm excited to be starting with community planning. A little bit about me. I'm from Emmaus, Pennsylvania, obviously Pennsylvania, in Lehigh Valley. I've done a lot of different like internships and experiences. I've worked in water infrastructure, state level, policy and data. I've done climate action, development, construction, community level, or local level in Bethlehem. I've also spent the last 2 summers living in Uganda doing conservation research and leading an internship program for Lehigh.
But what makes you qualified for this?
Welcome.
Welcome, Marco.
Thank you.
Great school.
Well, thank you. We also have another position that has been filled. That person will not start until March 25th. He is relocating from the Atlanta, Georgia area. And his name's Leavitt-Gruberger. He will be a senior county planner, working for Ann and maybe taking some of her presentations at some point.
No, that's not allowed.
Maybe.
So we want to.
We also, now we currently have 3 open positions, again, some prospects on all those, so it's good. Things are starting to move, certainly since the compensation study has helped with that. But very, very welcome to that fact. Just to update on new administration, we have met with Commissioners DeBello and Nikija. The Planning Commission overview. I know Steve has met with them as well. We have a second part to our meeting with Commissioner Makija next week. And just this last week, we've learned that Commissioner DeBello was appointed to the SRPRA board. So I'll be working with him and, on that project. And Commissioner Makija was appointed to the DVRPC board. So he'll be our new representative at the regional level. And again, that's a very supportive relationship between myself, Edmond, and other staff with the commissioner who sits on that board. And we also know that the transition committees have been ongoing for the commissioners. My understanding is they were instructed to wrap up the recommendations by the end of February. There were 3 committees on that were most relevant to us, and we had various points of talk to different members into some fashion. So we think that'll be a constructive exercise once those recommendations are made out, and we expect they'll provide some guidance and some impact on our work program. Mentioned before the meeting, on Monday, there was the Health Spark Foundation based out of Lansdale held a summit on homelessness and affordable housing at Bryn Mawr College. I was there as well as a number of our staff. It was a really exciting event. It brought together a lot of the practitioners, the nonprofits, the advocates. There were some municipal officials, but not heavy on that side. And all 3 commissioners spoke to their commitment on advancing both affordable housing and issues of homelessness. So all in all, it was exciting. We're talking about our own county sponsored event that will likely be the first half of this year as well, with Commissioner Winder. So I moderated a panel on how to have public conversations on these issues with some panelists from Upper Gwynedd, Upper Marion, and Lower Marion, and it was well attended and had a lot of great conversations. So just want to report back on that. On February 27th upcoming, DVRPC is holding its annual board retreat. I'll also be on a panel for that event talking about how plans are moved from regional to local, and in my case, focusing on our design and placemaking efforts with our municipalities. That will be attended by myself, Matt Edmond, Matt Popek, and Patty Guttenplan, as well as our new appointee, Commissioner Makija. SEPTA recently hosted an open house for TOD concept development at Ambler Station. They're looking to utilize redevelop their surface parking lot in partnership with the borough into mixed use, both apartment and living and commercial. It's a very large lot and would certainly impact Ambler a bit. I was at the open house, as well as Tim Kaneshi's heading it out of our office as far as that coordination with SEPTA, and he's the Ambler planner, in addition to other staff. And it was a good open house. It wasn't a presentation, but there were lots of boards and ideas, and really not the immediate, pitchfork crowd or negativity heard. There was some openness to hearing how this development might come in. Also some concerns and apprehensions, which will be duly discussed over the months and years ahead. But this is kind of the kickoff to SEPTA's new focus on looking at the land it holds around train stations and seeing if it can move the needle on partnering on private development with those assets.
Would that have parking?
It would turn into garage parking.
Okay.
If you're familiar with that lot, it's a huge lot, and is well underused, currently.
Are they gonna put that out to like an RFP for developers to?
Yeah, they'll be kind of defining the parameters of what they're expecting. They're hopefully, and they've said there would be an affordable housing component to it. Yes. Finally, just on the event highlights that are shared every month, I do want to apologize. I know specifically to Dulcie, because I know we had an event on there once or last time that got canceled, and that you wouldn't know it if you just had that sheet that we give you, the day before the board
And
meeting.
Peter Simone apologized again this morning when he was with him. Well, with him.
Yeah.
He said-
Peter Simone?
He said he.
Sorry that Dulcie sat in the parking lot?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So we were looking how to avoid that kind of thing, and we realized it's hard,
Luckily, it was
it's hard to like update everything all the time. But this time, what we are now doing is providing contact info and links with that information, so that if you are interested, you'll have a much easier ability to check in, before the event and make sure, okay, yes, it's on, and or if anything else needs to be sought. So hopefully those cues within the document are more helpful towards that end. And then just I wanted to note, this just came about Friday morning. There will be a press event with Representative Webster at Hoy Park, which is Collegeville mailing address, but it's actually at the bottom in Lower Providence. And it's to kick off the Perkiomen flood study, which he obtained $1 million for that project. So we're going to be celebrating that and promoting it. We also expect to be on the Board of Commissioners agenda the following week, and invited the representative to join to announce publicly the beginning of that project as well. So that is all I have. Okay. Oh, we do have a new commerce director at the county. His name is Stephen Forster. Ann and I just met him the other day. Seems like a really smart guy. He's been in the area for a long time. He got his bones working in O'Neill's development properties in the early 2000s.
Guy.
But he's done a lot with financing and banking and the state. So I think he's gonna bring a lot of energy.
Who did he take over for?
What's that?
Who did you take over for?
Dave Zellers.
Oh,
Yeah, he was resigned in back in September.
I didn't know that.
In August,
He's
maybe.
in county.
Yeah, he's currently working.
Gotcha. Any questions or comments before we part?
I have one item, if I could, Stephen, quickly. I just wanted to congratulate Matt Edmond and his group. The Institute of Transportation Engineers were hosting the international meeting in Philadelphia in July. And working with Matt, I encouraged him to, look at opportunities for the county to be a part of that agenda. I am one of the co-chairs, and I was able to review some of the abstracts. It was a very competitive process, and Matt was successful in both of his submissions. So he will have two topics on the agenda. When he got the word, just I guess last week, he said, "What have I gotten myself into?" They accepted both of them, but he'll be in good company with a lot of friends and peers at that event. We're actually looking to have the biggest meeting ever with about 2,000 attendees, obviously transportation focused. So I very much look forward to Matt and the county being part of that agenda, and congratulations.
That's gotta be a crazy convention.
It's so crazy.
It's gotta be crazy. All right, great,
Thanks,
thank you.
Stephen.
Any other things? No? We're adjourned, thank you.